So AI is really everywhere. It's in our homes, in our phones, woven into the very fabric of our daily lives. It can startle us, support us, and even entertain us by recommending cat videos, or to me, dog videos, especially golden retrievers, again and again, and keep you very engaged on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you're at, thanks to AI. So whether you love it or fear it, one thing is certain: you cannot ignore it. And I know AI probably sounds a little bit like a stalker right now, but here's the real question. As AI continues to disrupt jobs, industries, and markets at breakneck speed, what does this mean for the generations to come? So on our second session of the day, Inclusive Growth in an AI World, with Mr. Kok Yam and Mr. Amit Gupta, they will take on these pressing questions head on. In India, one big question looms large. Will our vast young population become a demographic dividend? Or could it risk turning into a demographic disaster? Our first speaker has been a director of manpower for the Ministry of Defense, as well as a key stakeholder in the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office. Since 2021, he has led Skills Future Singapore in driving national efforts to encourage lifelong learning and workforce adaptability. Let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Kok Yam, CEO, Skills Future SG. Right in the middle, thank you. Okay, joining him on stage is a leader who has been at the forefront of building resilient and sustainable livelihoods. He heads a Bengaluru-based nonprofit founded in 2015 with a mission to alleviate poverty by creating lasting opportunities for communities. From tackling the challenges of Gen AI to shaping the future of sustainable work, his organization covers the full spectrum of what livelihoods will look like tomorrow. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Amit Gupta, CEO, the Nudge Institute. And leading us through this session is Mr. Aravind Sankaran, advisor to an Asian Development Bank on fintech policy and a seasoned banking leader with deep expertise in retail payments and wealth management. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Aravind to the stage. Hi. Now, just before we start, quick reminder to send in your questions by scanning the QR code. The code is the same for all sessions, and you can send in your questions at any time during the session. Over to you, Aravind.
Thank you, Manisha. So we're going to descend from the lofty world of geopolitics and all that's going on there, and we're going to descend to the grassroots. Grassroots where ordinary children, women and men live in their pursuit of happiness and seeking out livelihoods and what lies ahead for them. And I have the enviable task of actually moderating a dialogue with Kok Yam and Amit, both experts in their own fields. And what we're going to do over the next 40 minutes is to examine some burning questions that are there in government, industry, and civil society today about what the title talks about. AI is everywhere, but let's look at how it's going to determine jobs, livelihoods, and ultimately the pursuit of happiness for humanity. So the world of work, as we know, is being reshaped by AI. There's a lot going on in terms of new opportunities, productivity is up, jobs are getting automated. But what I'd like to focus us on today is really the risks that are emerging. There are questions and concerns around equity, around employability, around access to opportunities. And I think we need to find answers or guidance or directions that will solve some of that. The wealth of nations is going to be increasingly determined by how nations and institutions can equip their people to actually cope with an AI-driven economy while ensuring that growth remains inclusive. Inclusive is a word that's been bandied about a lot. Nations, institutions, governments of the day have talked about inclusive growth, but there remains a massive gap between the vision or the campaigning and the actual situation on the ground. Together with Kok Yam and Amit, we will examine these questions. So let's dive in. Kok Yam, you lead a whole of nation movement, as I have seen that being described for Skills Future, a whole of nation movement to build an agile and resilient workforce. Could you share some initial comments and thoughts about Skills Future and the journey that you've had playing an instrumental role in developing where it is today?
Thanks very much, Arvind. First of all, it is an honor to be here to share, and I really look forward to the interactive sessions. I've learned a lot from these sessions over my experience. There is a quick way to describe what my agency does, which is really to drive the lifelong learning movement, really to provide opportunities as access so that education and learning and progress, individual progress, does not stop after you finish your diploma, after you've gone through the Institute of Technical Education, after you finish your university. So that's the quick way of describing it. But let me give a bit of a slightly more historical context, because the Skills Future Agency, we've been here for about 10 years, but the whole idea, the notion of adult learning is centuries old, right? In the past, even my father took night classes in English. He did that. The place where the night classes were held were in Raffles Institution. So the inside joke in my family was that, oh, see, I am also RI boy. So yeah, that was if you understand the Singapore education system. But now I think the challenge is a bit different. There are first of all, industry is more variegated, meaning that it's not just about English and math. That we have to upskill our workers in. There's precision engineering, there's banking, there's marketing. It's such a variegated labor market. Number two, the pace of change is incredible, and so nobody, whether you have a degree, even from IIM, nobody is safe in terms of knowing that his skills will be relevant tomorrow, next year, and so on. And because of that, the third point is that the lifelong learning infrastructure, the Skills Future infrastructure, has to serve a lot more of the workforce and at a much higher cadence. So I think these are the three sort of challenges that we are facing as we move from the past to the present. So I'll stop here.
Thank you, Kok Yam, for that. Let me turn to Amit as well to set out the picture as you see it. You run a grassroots up organization, partnering governments, markets, civil society, and you have a lofty ambition to move India out of poverty. So as you build this program of activities to change the livelihoods for 1.4 billion people, can you share with us your journey in that and where is Nudge Institute going with that mission?
Yeah. Thank you, Arvind, and thank you for this opportunity to be here. So Nudge is an action research institute, as we like to call it. And as Arvind said, that goal is to make India poverty-free within our lifetime. Now, question is that why do we think that we can achieve that? There are many enabling conditions right now in India. GDP is now more than $4 trillion. Whether it is fifth largest or fourth largest is up for debate. Government has about $600 billion of annual budget, and more than 1/4 of that goes in welfare schemes. CSR funding is coming. Right now it is at $4.5 billion annually and slated to increase to about $20 billion in 10 years and so on. As a country, we have experienced running large transformations such as Green Revolution, White Revolution, and even IT Revolution. So I think there are many enabling conditions, and if we do things right, we will be able to achieve that. We do it in two ways. One is direct implementation program, and that's where the action research comes. And the idea is that in Indian context, find programs which can alleviate poverty and scale at population level. And once we have found such models, then partner with government to scale it. So currently we are working with about 12 state governments and 4 federal ministries. We are working with about 300,000 poorest of the poor families in the very remote areas of the country. We have unlocked about $250 million of government funding for these kind of schemes. Second is building social entrepreneurship in the case of livelihood and poverty alleviation. And the idea is that if we can have more innovators, that will have far more leverage. And so far, we have incubated about 130 such organizations. Some of them have become Acumen Fellow, Mulago Fellow. One organization which we incubated was also on the cover of Time magazine recently. So these are the two things which we do as an organization.
Wonderful. So we have here, as you can see, an amazing, two journeys. One is a whole of nation movement. The other is a grassroots up organization trying to shape the future of 1.4 billion people. Let me turn to Kok Yam with my first question. We are seeing that in the professional services, perhaps even in manufacturing, AI is automating a number of job roles, particularly the junior job roles. The traditional journey of workers entering the workforce and then learning the trade through apprenticeship with experienced colleagues is clearly at risk. Over time, as they retire from the workforce, these experienced hands are not necessarily going to leave behind the expertise that has resided with them. How are organizations expected to retain the learning that in essence is their competitive moat? Because if that learning is not retained, then a program like Skills Future would face an even greater challenge.
I'm glad you started with that question, because that is indeed one of the key challenges and key conversations that we must have with industry leaders, those companies that hire people. And the concern, even before this, when ChatGPT came out, OpenAI and so on, there are already concerns, maybe post-COVID, about a change in relationship between the employer and the employee. And if employees are not meant to stay in your company for so long, why then, as an employer, do I require to invest so much in you? That is a critical relationship, the employer-employee relationship, and how much the employer is willing to invest in their worker, in workforce development. Now with AI, there's a new dimension to this challenge, which is, as you say, if the junior roles, junior consultant roles, and so on, open desktop research, simple editing, things like that, can be done, very quite easly or at scale with large language models and so on. Why then do I need to hire so many junior staff? There was I saw a meme or something about the pyramid of consulting now becoming an obelisk, right? I can't remember where I got the picture from. But those
we do have some consultants here in the room.
Sorry, yeah.
Who are beginning to sweat.
But they're senior enough, so it's okay. So that is indeed a concern. I think the government, because it's kind of like managing trying to avoid a tragedy of the commons, because everybody gains when we invest in workers. Companies gain eventually, but it is about that common workforce that we have, and as a society, as an economy, we have to have some way to invest in the young, to invest in the graduates, so that eventually they become the experts that guide the AI, they become the experts that lead the agentic AI running around and so on, and decide, of all the pictures, all the cat videos that's been made up, which one really could sell the product. So those things are necessary. It's just about how we should organize ourselves between government, employers, and in Singapore, because it's a tripartite kind of approach with the unions, so as to make sure that this pipeline continues. It's a conversation that is ongoing. We've recently launched a GRIT program to allow graduates to come in precisely to learn, take on apprenticeships and so on after they graduate, and that's to the end. But it is work in progress.
Yeah, I want to build on that a little bit. You mentioned about the Singapore, ecosystem being built on the tripartite foundation pillars, and private sector has a role to play, the government has a role to play. In recent years, during the time that Skills Future has developed, and it started in 2015. And since then, we've seen Singapore's thinking on education change radically. And we are also an aging society. So all these again, and plus the rise of AI and the apprenticeship that we spoke about, how does the Skills Future program, take into account the radical change in education, the aging society, and the fact that employers are thinking hard about hiring? How does the Skills Future, how is it pivoted, or where has it gone to be able to address some of these things? Have you been enabled by some of these policy changes? How does it work for you?
So this is about a sort of a fundamental rethink of the education system in terms of the idea that education does not stop when you get your degree, when you get a diploma, and it has to be the infrastructure, the education infrastructure, the provision of that has to go all the way until you complete your career, and that is I mentioned that a little in my introductory comments, and that is a key shift. Because typically, in our development cycles as nations, we start with investing heavily in the young, and rightly so, because that's the flow, right? That's the flow of talent, there's a flow of labor, there's a flow of workers, there's a flow of skilled workers for economy. But increasingly, the stock is important. Because as your economy moves fast, as you advance as a country, you have a stock of workers. And now, even if you're at the developed stage, the AI is moving, the technology is moving. And so this stock of workers, they are already active, working in companies, contributing to the GDP and so on. They need to be constantly upskilled. They need to be constantly empowered to be adaptable to technology change. And that I think is a shift, not just in terms of government expenditure, government investment, but in terms of the individual thinking, right? Because a lot of people that, I've done enough studying, now I'm at the workplace, don't bother me with this kind of things anymore. So there is one shift that has to be made. And the companies, how do we engage companies so that they too are bought in, and they are saying, okay, I'm both an employer as well as almost a school, almost an investor in my workforce, so that they can grow with me even as they work for me.
Thank you. And that raises an important point about co-opting your stakeholders and your partners in being able to visualize the impact and the benefit of what they're doing, and then you get an aligned strategy. Let me turn to Amit, and I want to provoke you with a question which relates to the mission that you have set for yourself to alleviate poverty. This morning, Wilson spoke to us about AI and how Google is helping in terms of, while there's a no way back theme, actually we will go forward and it'll be inclusive. From where you sit, Nudge Institute has direct intervention programs, as well as you have enablement programs that actually build livelihoods. Will AI alleviate or deepen poverty and livelihoods in a country like India? You can take some time over this and share with us your thoughts.
So Arvind, I am an AI optimist, and I think AI can alleviate poverty if we will do it in a right manner, right? If I take it from an Indian context, right? So I see two extremes. One is graduates from elite schools like IITs, IIMs, and some of the private schools, right? And what happened prior to 1991, when there were not many opportunities, we actually exported our best product, our talent, right? Now things are different, right? The city where I live in, I see many people who choose not to leave the country. I know many people who have come back to the country. I myself have come back to the country. And I see that they are doing all kind of innovations at the peak of the technology using AI. Idea is that it needs to be contextual to Indian conditions. Idea is that once that innovation happens, how does that get diffused to the larger population? And we have enablers, digital rails like Aadhaar, UPI, and so on and so forth, right? So if that can get diffused and that talent stays there and innovate, that will, that tide will rise all the boats. That's number one, right? Number two is that at the extreme, you see people in the rural area. Pratham's ASER report year after year talks about how our foundational education is failing, right? A class fifth student can't do math of class second, right? And during COVID period, it has become worse. I think AI can be a great enabler there. It can be a very individualized tutoring there. In rural India, where one teacher is teaching in one room multiple classes with people of different competence level, then AI can be that enabler. Third thing is that for many of these jobs related to AI, it can be done in situ in rural areas. Karya, the company which was on the cover of Time, what they are doing is that they are employing rural women to create vernacular voice data which is being used to train AI models. And they are providing them livelihood right there, right? Similarly, state capacity is a big problem in India, right? Policies are there. We have excellent policies. Now there's a company called Adalat AI which we have incubated. What they are doing is that using AI, they are accelerating transcription of the court procedure and so on and so forth. So there are these innovations happening, right? And on both the ends, we need to utilize it properly. Of course, when any technological shift happens, there are people who get impacted. And there needs to be institutional safeguards in place to make sure that we take care of that. That's where I think some work needs to be done.
Wow, that's please, you had something to add. Please go ahead.
I just want to say that I too am an AI optimist, and I just want to make a few points.
Please go ahead.
The first is I think it's natural for people to be more pessimistic than optimistic, because the part where the AI can substitute what you do is very obvious, but the part about growth is a little bit more. Is a little bit less clear. But fundamentally, AI is a general purpose computational capability. It's a tool, it's a bunch of techniques and so on. So you have positive impacts on medicine, precision engineering, education, doing cat videos, anything, because it is general purpose. And the sort of the way we are limited in our current capacity in predicting what are the innovations that will happen. That's the first point. The second point is, it is clear when AI is substitutional, but sometimes it's not so clear whether there's growth. So I was talking to a software developer, a good friend of mine, and he was saying, it's true that AI will automate a lot of software development work, but at the same time, the volume of software, the volume of code is growing also exponentially. So the question is, yes, maybe you can get a software developer to write 10 times as many code as he's done in the past, because it just reviews the stuff and all that. But maybe he needs to do so. The third is a more national kind of, perhaps more idiosyncratic to Singapore, is that we have an aging population, and we need people anyway. So if some of these jobs can be done by agentic, AI running around, I think on the whole, it creates that runway for the economy to continue to grow, for it to be vibrant, for industries to be vibrant. So as you can see, like Amit, I'm also an optimist.
That's impressive. We have two AI optimists here, ladies and gentlemen. So that I was expecting a somewhat different point of view. That's great to see a residence out here. But your point you make about the various situations where AI can actually help with outcomes. I was struck by your essay that you wrote recently, where you spoke about specific instances in Indian livelihoods where AI is already making a difference. The point about grape farmers in Pune, or the delivery, gig driver. And could you share that with the audience? I thought those were fascinating examples.
So one example was about agriculture. So 86% of farmers in India are small and medium holding farmers, right? And high value crops are fit for this kind of small plots, because that's where you cannot do too much of mechanization, but you need lot of human labor and a lot of precision. Now what happens is that if we do it properly and export it to developed countries, they can make far more money, yeah, and we can make a sustainable livelihood for them. However, if they export to EU or America or any other countries, because of their quality standards on use of pesticides and so on, up to 30% of produce gets rejected. So AI can actually be an enabler to reduce that rejection because of the pesticides and precision in the farming. And if that 30% comes down to 10%, that's a substantial increase in their income. Similarly, delivery guy in Bangalore, the person is perpetually in stress. I mean, those who are living in Bangalore would know that, got to empathize with them, that their job is so difficult because their bosses have given them a guarantee of 10 minutes, but they have to navigate Bangalore traffic, right? But if AI can, on a real-time basis, tell them, what is the fastest route, what is the fastest way of sequencing the delivery and so on, the guy can make more deliveries. And somebody who's making 20,000 rupees a month, if that person increases his income by, let's say, 10%, 20%, that's a substantial change in his life. So, these are some of the use cases where AI can be enabler for even people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak.
Thank you for sharing that. Kok Yam, I'll come to you now and ask a question that is very important in the minds of the audience here. We have a number of parents here who have children who are either going into college or in college or maybe entering the workforce. And like all parents, we have dreams, hopes, fears, and concerns for our children and the world and the workplace that they are in or will step into. As parents become better informed about skill sets that their children need to not just survive but thrive in this new world, what is your advice from them?
Wow, that's I'm a parent too, and my kids don't listen to my advice. So,
that's a different matter.
That's a very low bar to start with.
And let me, Amit, I'll be coming to you with this. I'm giving you advance notice.
I think the clearest message, and it is a message that we repeat all the time, even nationally, is that the learning cannot stop. And the whole idea is to develop the habits and the skills to continue to learn, to be curious, to be able to be comfortable in sort of cross-disciplinary teams, and eventually, when you become management, when you lead a team and to be able to appreciate that, the engineer may come from one angle, but you need the sales guy also, and you need that ability to bring together different sort of skill sets and to meld it together to be able to get things done in a more agile, in a world that requires more agility and adaptability. So I am personally not so concerned about AI being able to do this, to write essays and so on. But it is important for them to know that when they are in education, it is a protected space where they are actually compelled to write essays and they are compelled to do things before they enter the workplace, where the employer presumably will say, well, you don't have to do that. I just press a button and you can get a speech done, you can get a report done and so on. Then they will never develop those muscles to be able to be senior, to take on supervisory position. So I think if I have any advice for my kid is, don't take the shortcut all the time. Take the shortcut only when tomorrow's the deadline or something. But don't take the shortcut all the time. Exercise your mind so that you get some of these basics right. Writing code, math, and so on. Ingrain yourself deeply in this. Yeah. But like I say, my kids don't listen to me, so there we go.
Is there, Skills Future is a great repository. Are there any courses that are bubbling up as you see demand that you would like to share with this group? You're saying that go and check out this course. This could be of relevance to you.
There are tons of causes. We've taken a market-driven kind of approach. So our trainers, whether they are institutions or private trainers, they respond to the market. And there is a demand for Gen AI. People are curious about what this thing can do for me, and so on. So there are tons of causes. What we are trying to put in place an infrastructure is a more nimble way to do quality control of some of these causes. I would say if you want to go for an AI course, go for the ones that are offered by our institutes of higher learning. The SUTD, for example, they don't pay me, but the SUTD, for example, oh yes, please report that back to your chairman. For example, they have a pretty good one, and I say this because I've gone through some of it myself. That's the only reason I'm saying it. They are pretty good where they customize the training for the team, for the corporate team. So that I think is one example of a pretty good course.
Thank you. Amit, your turn on advice to parents here.
First of all, one disclosure, I am not a parent, so probably I'm not qualified to give this advice. But one thing I'll say in general, this is nothing new, but the things are accelerating on two dimensions. One, that technological innovation has a exponential path of development, right? So what happens is that the shelf life of any skills which we are acquiring, it reduces. When writing was invented, people were worried that, the way we used to retain the knowledge, that will go away, right? That was many centuries back, right? So with AI and more advanced technologies which are bound to come, the shelf life is going to go down. That's number one. Number two, thanks to healthcare, increasing prosperity, and so on, we are living a longer life, right? And many disruptions are happening. So we will have to think about multiple careers because of longer life. There are socioeconomic implications of that, right? And in that longer life, because of technological innovations, disruptions are going to be faster. So the key is that how do you keep on upskilling yourself? That's important. That is something which is more of an attitude than anything else, right? We will lose certain cognitive abilities because of new technologies. I can't remember a single phone number. My father would never note down any phone number, right? So that's the difference, right? We stopped writing from hands. Now I have stopped typing also because voice softwares are so good, right? But then it releases time for me to utilize it on something else. And that's what we need to think about, that, that productivity gain which we are having, how do we properly utilize that? What is the next thing coming? How do we upskill them on an ongoing basis?
Thank you. Wow, you're not just an AI optimist, you're a techno-optimist as well. Thank you for that. We're going to jump into the questions. There are lots of fantastic questions out here, but one quick one from me for both of you, because we are in an India-Singapore platform, is there may be different routes, the challenges may be different, but surely there are common solutions. How can India and Singapore kind of come together in being able to create common solutions or take best practices from each other? India has the benefit of scale and the public digital infrastructure that is world-class. Singapore is known for the depth of its product solution, its nation's programs on education and skilling. How, in your view, can the two countries come together on this?
Yeah. Thanks. That's a great question. I think the issue about education, including adult education, is that it is fundamentally domestic, which doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk to each other, but it means that we have to spend a little bit more time thinking about how we can collaborate together. Otherwise, you do your stuff, I do my stuff, we are all domestic, right? So, but I think there are three areas specifically. The first is, which I feel internationally we have to all be stronger in, is labor market surveillance. Being able to know what employers want at a cadence that has never been done before. No longer getting a group of people, having consultations, what do future lawyers, what look like, and so on. Labor market surveillance, going directly to the labor market, using LLM, all kinds of techniques to figure out what the labor market wants, and then having that influence your training. India has scale, like you say, tons of data, and you can come together and work on this. I think we'll be very, very keen. So number one, labor market surveillance. Number two, in terms of some of the, you mentioned Aadhaar and some of the other platforms, we are building we have a SingPass system. We are building a career and skills passport and enriching it for every Singaporean to bring together his training and his career experience for hiring, for future signposting of training and so on. And it's something that if India or part of India is interested in working together on some of these digital platforms, I think there's a lot of space for that. And number three, perhaps in specific areas of looking at quality assurance, andragogy, which is the adult version of pedagogy, things like that. I think there's lots of space for exchange.
Thank you. A quick take from you, Amit, before we go into the questions.
No, strong +1 to what he said. See, we also have multiple skills program. NSDC has program. We have program for rural youth. We have program for outcome-based training and so on. I think what Singapore does really well is execution, right? Of course, there's a state capacity issue and so on. I mean, that's where I see an opportunity to learn and collaborate with each other, right? Like I said that we have a lot of digital rails and we don't, hypothetically, we can connect those digital rails to what AI has to offer. Some experimentations are going on, but very early stage, right? That's where I think depth of, in AI, where Singapore is, and the digital rail and the scale India has, there's a scope of, collaboration. Third thing I personally believe, and I hope and this is my personal belief, that India still is on an evolution path of improving pedagogy. Our school has been very rote-based, which is increasingly changing. Even colleges were rote-based, quite frankly, and I have benefit of comparing two kind of pedagogy. So I think that's where there's a lot to learn from each other also. 10 good IITs or 10 good IIMs is not going to serve 1.4 billion people, right? So how do we scale that also? So these are some of the areas.
Thank you so much. Let me jump on the questions. We have a number of them here. So I would like pointed reply so that we can cover as many questions as possible. So the first one that got most votes is, and this probably goes to Kok Yam, between job attrition and AI-based automation, how should Singapore deal with fewer roles being available in the future? Is being the entrepreneurial hub of the global South our way forward?
We are an open economy, so we can't fight the automation. So the way to do it is also to be on the supply side in terms of providing the AI solutions and so on, and to ride on that innovation to create new jobs, new tasks for workers.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Next, question we have is, and this is probably either of you can take, maybe Amit, you can. The knowledge economy has been turned on its head by AI, and India's hold on IT is slipping rapidly. What's the future of work and jobs in India in manufacturing? How would India even compete with China? And I think the previous panel spoke about some challenges. What's your take on that?
First of all, I don't have an answer. I know that in IT, there's a big threat. I can give you a personal example. In Nudge, we developed one custom software using the old way. We spent about $2 million on that. For another program, we are using AI. The software got developed in a quarter. We spent about $100,000, right? So there's a threat. And what I've seen is in IT services and knowledge economy and so on, some of the forward-looking leaders are thinking about it and making the changes the way they do business. The problem I see is that the broader organization is in denial. And that is what we have seen when outsourcing happened, when globalization happened, and so on. So we need to learn from our mistakes. Unfortunately, we don't do as often as we should, right? See, manufacturing, it's a loaded topic. So I think the way we are dealing with it is a bit outdated and very expensive, in India. So we need to. I think there's a need to pull people out of agriculture. There are too many people in agriculture. So we need to think about manufacturing also, but something which still has some labor arbitrage advantage.
Thank you. One last question before I bring the session to a close. And this is a tongue-in-cheek question, but I think there is a measure of truth here. This person overheard online, I wanted AI to take care of laundry and chores so that I have time for creative pursuits. But it seems to be going the other way around. Is AI-led work change really headed in the right direction?
When we looked at labor market data, we look at the US one, we found it easy in our heads to frame the types of tasks that employers ask employees to do into 3 classes. The first class of roles, tasks, we find eminently automatable, which means the general purpose tools out there, Notebook LM, ChatGPT, etc., they can do the job, editing, and so on. That's the first class. And then there's another class on the other side, which is very, very far from being automated. Two types of roles here. Number one, roles that require a very high degree of human-to-human interaction. And number 2, the physical tasks. Plumbing, tiling are the ones. Laundry didn't appear, but I mean, it's the same point. It's a physical task. I think the work that we need to do there is to figure out which are the sort of tasks that as humans we really need to do very well in, so that the Singapore worker or the Indian worker will be able to do those tasks that are not that will be a while before the robot comes and hang your clothes out and stuff like that. I don't know, operator. The third set of tasks are in the middle, and here is where it is fundamentally automatable, but you need some bespokeness to the company's implementation. Some of their own data needs to be put in place, and data is never clean, and so on and so forth. And this part is about enterprise development, enterprise transformation. So I think we see it in these three categories.
Thank you so much. Arvind, I hope you're feeling a little better. But with that, I'll bring the session to a close. It's been a wonderful hour, very engaging. Thank you so much. Please join me in giving a round of applause. Thank you.